Hello, and welcome to carbonwhy, the channel that's catered to those who are avid lifelong learners. My channel explores the how, what, where, why the world works the way it does. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button so that you can get notified of my next video. In this week's episode, we find out, can Florida become the next big tech and finance hub? Florida is not called the Sunshine State for nothing. With over 230 days of sunshine a year, upwards of 600 miles of beach, Disney World, fancy sports cars, a wild nightlife, and of course, no income tax, it's no wonder why people are flocking to Florida. For so long, Florida was the place you go to if you couldn't make it in New York. It just wasn't that cool amongst the wealthy to move to Florida. But now, it's like you're the sucker that stayed in New York. Some of Wall Street's biggest names like Goldman Sachs, Elliott Management, and Citadel Group are considering opening offices in Florida. And high-profile investors like Keith Rabois, Shervin Pishever, and John Obringer have already made the move. Even JetBlue is considering it. But while Florida might seem like this amazing place, the state's economy is marked with things like low-paying tourism and service sector jobs, inequality, and climate change. The state also ranks amongst the lowest in affordable housing and health and unemployment insurance across the country. The lockdown caused a shift in consumer and employment behavior all over the US, and quality of life became more of a priority. Moving to Florida seemed like the obvious choice for many. Estimates show that Miami, Tampa, and Orlando were among the top choices for New Yorkers fleeing the lockdown. So, is Florida really becoming the next big tech and finance hub? Well, for the last decade, there have been reports of Florida doing exactly so. The state solidified its place in the big leagues when $2.88 billion was raised in venture capital in 2018. And that trend has continued all throughout 2020. Some even think Miami has the potential to become the largest tech hub in the US in the next 5 to 10 years. In December 2020, venture capitalists Delian Asparuhov tweeted, "Okay guys, hear me out? What if we move Silicon Valley to Miami?" When Asparuhov visited Miami in March of 2020, he saw that there were more late stages, in particular investors, in Series B and beyond than in San Francisco. This was partly because of how crossovers in hedge funds that have entered into venture capital are deploying more dollars than even the venture firms are. Things were already moving in that direction anyway, because a lot of those had moved to Miami already. And within hours, Miami Mayor Francis Suarez responded, "How can I help?" Delian's tweet and eventual move has fueled momentum that Suarez and other locals have capitalized on. SoftBank's pledge to invest $100 million in Miami has locals buzzing with the notion that high-earning jobs in tech and finance will soon be coming their way. And that's not all. Conversations with celebrities and tech billionaire Peter Thiel just confirms the idea that Florida might just be the next hub for big tech and finance. Before the lockdown, Florida had around 50 or 60 financial service firms. Many of them had somewhere in the range of $500 million assets under management. But now there's companies that have assets under management well over $1 billion. Aside from being the Sunshine State, Florida also has a welcoming business climate. According to the Tax Foundation, after Wyoming, South Dakota, and Alaska, Florida is the fourth friendliest business state in the country. That's because the state has no individual income tax and low corporate and unemployment insurance taxes. Florida is ranking 12th in CNBC's rank for the top states in business and 4th for access to capital after California, New York, and Texas. Eric Casaburi, the founder of Longevity Brands and a member of Tiger 21, a peer membership network for high net worth individuals, moved his family to Orlando about 6 years ago. And he's just one example of how the state has been drawing in people because of its promise as a financial hub. The influx of the wealthy is definitely being reflected on the housing market. South Florida homes, valued at around $1 billion, have increased by 40 to 50% in 2020 as compared to 2019. And officials believe this influx of people and companies is long-term. But the average financial salesperson or analyst in Florida makes about half of what they'd make in New York. which is a deterring factor in choosing between job offers in New York or Florida. Dillian says it was really hard for companies to source talent locally while building and growing over the past 3 or 4 years before the lockdown. But since the lockdown, businesses basically have to pick off the litter. They get to choose from the top-tier engineers from all over the world. Migration trends are a strong indicator of growth, and Florida's population grew by nearly 15% in the last decade. The state received over 2.3 million more people than it lost, the highest in the US. But over 50% of that growth came from people aged 60 and above. Population growth was expected to slow down in 2020 due to the lockdown, but according to an independent analyst on cell phone data, migration to Tampa and Orlando surged, but dropped sharply in Miami. In 1963, Florida was ranked the 11th largest economy in the country. Today, it's the 4th, just after New York. The economy has come a long way in 50 years. Florida's gross state product, which is commonly used to measure the health of an economy, also stayed well above the national average in the 7 years prior to the lockdown. Except for the dips in the 2008 recession, employment grew in every category until 2020. Now the numbers are nice and all and tell a promising story, but the true health of an economy is really in how the bottom is doing. If teachers and public sector workers are struggling, then the economy could still use some work. And Florida still has all the issues and then some. So the economy is not totally healthy. It might be for some, but not for all. Just like anywhere else in the world, the lockdown was tough on Florida. The GDP fell by 2.9% in 2020. And despite the state's lax lockdown closures and the mass influx of people, between fiscal quarters 3 and 4, the state only grew 3.1%. So how come the median income is about 13% below the national average if there's all this wealth coming into the state? That's because most Floridans work in construction, the service industry and in the schools. And the state spends less on public services like health and education per capita than any other state in the country, resulting in a plethora of social economic problems like suppressed low and middle income wages, social fragmentation, poor health and violence. Philip Agnew, the organizer of Black Men Built, says there's different Floridas that people live in. According to Philip, there's the tax haven Florida where the rich live. Then there's the Florida of tourism where people go to Disney or the beaches for vacations. And then there's the Florida for farm workers, immigrants and minority groups who have the worst jobs, minimal pay and little to no benefits. The lockdown has shown many companies they can cut back on pricey San Francisco and New York City offices while maintaining the same revenue, and Florida has benefited from that shift. But for it to become a hub for all this kind of activity will take time. Just look at New York City, for instance. It took centuries to reach where it is now. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please link and subscribe and watch these videos that might pique your interest. Thank you for your support.